Hello and welcome back to the Gallant Goblin. As you may know if you've been watching our channel for the past month or so, the Hexbound Kickstarter from our sponsor Hitpoint Press is coming to an end very soon now. Thursday, March 11th to be exact, and I thought this was a great opportunity to introduce you to the extremely talented man who both wrote and illustrated it, Mr. Antonio Demico. Hexbound is his second Kickstarter following the very successful Dragon Stew book, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on too. Now, in case you haven't heard, Hexbound is a new supplement for 5th edition that brings witches into your games in the form of new subclasses. But these aren't your bare bones, 3-paragraph, flavorless subclasses that you may have seen elsewhere. These are fully developed, thematic, and impactful subclasses that will have a substantial impact on your game. But there's also new items and monsters and adventures and more. Now, to celebrate the Kickstarter, we're doing a giveaway for a $20 gift certificate to the Hitpoint Press store, where you can find things like Humblewood, the Griffin Saddlebag cards, animated reference cards, big bad booklets, and more. To enter, just be a subscriber to the Gallant Goblin and leave me a comment down below letting me know which Hexbound subclass you're most interested in and how you'd use it in your game. But you don't want to hear me just blather on about it anymore. Let me welcome Mr. Antonio Demico. Antonio, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing very good. What about you?
I'm doing fantastic too. I know that you're almost at the end of your Hexbound Kickstarter campaign. Kickstarters, yeah. You've gone through a couple now.
It is my second one. It is just as stressful.
Yeah, I've heard that it is the most intense 30-day period of your life, or it can be.
It sure is, but it's also really fun. I love to do it. It's my second one, and I remember thinking, "Oh, I'll have it. I'll be more. I'll be calmer the second time around." Nope. No, it is just as stressful, but just as fun.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Hexbound is and kind of where the idea came from for you?
For sure. Hexbound is a 5e supplement all about witches. It is thought of as something for DMs and for players equally. For players, you get witch subclasses, which we are constantly unlocking more and more and more through stretch goals on Kickstarter, which is very exciting. We're about to hit our 250K one. That means 2 more subclasses. We just had a collaboration with the Runesmith here on YouTube that also added an additional barbarian subclass. So you get witch subclasses, you get witch familiars, you get new spells, you get new backgrounds. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something because there's so many things in this book that I'm sure I'm forgetting something. And GMs, you get 4 now. We have unlocked a 4th one. So 4 adventures, witch-themed adventures that you can run with your party. You can have witches in your party. You cannot have witches in your party. You can do whatever you want. These are witch-themed adventures. I don't want to say basically every level, but basically you get like low level ones, you get mid level, you get high level ones. One thing that I really wanted for the adventures was not to do 4 dungeon crawls. I like dungeon crawls as much as the next Munchkin, but they do end up really boring, and I don't like a book that is only dungeon crawls. So I wanted variety. So there are dungeon crawls in there. I love them. But there's also in those dungeon crawls, there are RP opportunities. There are negotiation. There's a whole adventure that is just court intrigue. There's one that is a murder mystery. So you get a lot of variety, and you get stuff like, I think that we are at more than 30 magical items now. There's a ton of stuff for both players and GMs, all like under this mantle of witchcraft and witches.
Are those adventures tied together in any kind of loose way, or are they all standalone?
They are, in the way that because of level progression, it does make sense to go from one to the other. They are for standalone purposes because maybe you don't want to run all of these, like all 4 of these, but you want to run this one. I think it's extremely easy to tie them together because they all have to do something with witches, you know? They all have to do with witches. So no, they're not tied together in terms of story because I wanted something that someone could pop into their campaign, like one, you know? But I believe it's extremely easy to use them as a baseline for a witch-themed adventure.
Awesome. And why did you decide to, instead of just going and making a whole witch class, instead dole them out as subclasses for all the other 5e classes?
Yeah, that is a weird. Yeah, that's a weird choice. It does make sense, at least in my head. Yeah. Thank you.
No, it makes sense to me too. Yeah, tell us a little bit about it.
It does make sense in my head. I'm glad it makes sense in yours too. My thought on it was, of course, the first thought was which class. And then if you look into the space, you will see that if you kick a rock, you will find a witch class. And people have done it 1,000 times. So I was like, well, is that smart? Is that smart to compete against like 5,000 other products? And then I also thought, well, if I was running this, if I was running a witch-themed adventure, like campaign, I can't have squishy spellcasters all the time as the only type of enemy. And if I'm running a witch-themed campaign where I want my players to play with witches, who's tanking, who's meleeing, who's doing all that? And that's how witch subclasses came to be. They all share the same lore. They all practice witchcraft, which in my in the Hexbound, I don't want to say setting, but in the Hexbound witch lore, which is included in the book, witchcraft is just deriving magical energy by the summoning of spirits. It can look like anything depending on the witch. You know, spirits is left intentionally vague. They are like calls to the ethereal plane, but it's not like spirits are exactly this and this is the only thing that can be a spirit. No, it can be a ghost, it can be a forest spirit, it can be basically an intangible force that could be a spirit. And that's how witch subclasses came to be. They all enjoy the same lore, they're all witches, they all practice witchcraft, but you can have, if you want to play that witch that is like the prototype witch, you want to be the evil queen from Snow White, you want to make potions, you want to cast spells, you can play that witch. You can play the witch that likes libraries and dusty tomes. You can play that witch, but you can also be the monk witch that punches spirits into their foes. You can be the barbarian witch that is like a fun barbarian because they get to cast while in range, but they have like a flavor of the sorcerer because they don't get to choose exactly what kind of spell they cast. You can have the fighter witch that summons the spirits of fallen warriors to their blade, and they end up being like this kind of trick mimic fighter, which means you get abilities from other fighter subclasses. You have the traditional witch and you have the completely different witch. As a DM, cool because you get all kinds of enemy witches. As a player, maybe you don't want to play the traditional witch, or maybe you do want to play the traditional witch, and not a weird thing. You get both options. So why witch subclasses? Because options.
Absolutely. And I kind of like the idea too. You can have a full adventuring party that is diverse and that is well-rounded, and then they can come together as a little witches' coven, yes? And you have some mechanics in there. How have you kind of incorporated that idea of the group of witches?
To me, basically, I went through the list of anything that you could ever think, what is a witch? You know what I mean? I wanted to have a subclass that exemplified that. So, for example, the witch wizard is your spellcasting witch, your Harry Potter-esque witch. They're also, weirdly enough, a mimic fighter. They basically, wizards learn through rigorous study of like written and academics. Witchcraft, as defined in Hexbound, is something that is an oral tradition, and it's much more picked up by training, which means that wizards can learn from fallen enemies. They can commune with spirits and learn from fallen enemies, sort of like how wizards learn from spell scrolls. That is your spellcasting based, like spellcasting magic witch. You have the druid witch that is a potion brewing witch, which was actually in my first book, Dragon Stew, and was my favorite subclass that I did. And that's kind of like the spark that came into it when I decided to do witches. And then you have the warlock witch, who is the familiar witch, because to me there's such an association between witches and familiars more than with wizards. So that she is the familiar witch. And I say she, anyone can be a witch. I have gotten this question so many times. Anyone can be a witch in Hexbound. There's no gender associated with the word witch, just like there is no gender associated with the word wizard. But the warlock witch is a witch that learns their warlock, like their warlock patron is the same person that is their witch mentor. Right. And that is the witch that gets a coven, and that is the witch that gets an empowered familiar.
And if I remember reading correctly, as you're saying, the familiar is the eyes and ears of the patron, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And which to me gives you a lot of interesting story potential there, when your boss is basically watching you all the time. And
basically that,
you're doing it. And is that maybe your favorite subclass in the book, if you care to say?
Here's the thing.
Another favorite? They're all your babies?
They're all my babies. I have favorite babies though. I'm not. Don't tell them. I'm not afraid to admit it. I do love the Warlock. Which the thing about Warlocks is I am not. It's not my favorite thing to play. It is always my favorite thing to write for as a DM because it's the most like there's so much to pull from in the Warlock subclass that when I was writing the subclasses, I was like, it is unfair that it is so easy to pull from Warlock to make a really cool thing. But in the setting of, once again, not a setting, but in the lore of Witches and Hexbound, witchcraft is learned by a mentor. Mm-hmm. The Warlock, the mentor, the witch mentor is also your patron, which unlocked so many things. And because I wanted like what Pact of the like you have Hexblade that is extremely connected to Pact of the Blade. I wanted the exact same thing for Pact of the Chain, and that's how the familiar got tied into it. So that's why I think that the Warlock, I think that any Warlock witch in any campaign is a gift to any DM because you get, as you said, the familiar that can look through the patron's eye. You can get the Coven magic that they get access to. You have already baked in to this player's class this amazing NPC that is able to be a Warlock patron and a powerful witch. So yes, I think that in terms of DM writing, it's a fantastic class. You give so many things to the DM.
That's very cool. And also this, you're bringing something new to the table, I think, with this book, besides, all the witch stuff, but the Arcane Eye app that you've all developed. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where that came from?
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. That came from a stupid inspiration when I was 11. I never got out of my head the image of watching the Harry Potter movies and seeing the pictures moving in the books. That was just ingrained into my head saying one day we will be able to do that. And I come from the world of video games. So to me, there's a really big interest in tying those worlds together, tying like the video game expertise and the D&D, like the idea of tabletop RPGs in general. So when I was coming up with something that I wanted to make Hexbound special with, not just a book, but something else, the Arcane Eye app was what I landed in. There are tons of things that have been done with VR on D&D or have tried to be a thing. My thing when I came at it was I want this to be an actual thing that people can use. I don't want this to be a thing dependent on a specific mat that you buy or a square, like a plastic square that you put on your table. No, something that like you could use with your phone. So basically what it is, it's a completely free app that is being developed for iOS and Android, no problem. The app uses AR, but it also has a non-AR mode, kind of like Pokemon Go. So there's absolutely like everyone can use this app as long as you have a phone. And what you do is you open the app, the camera opens, and as you look through the camera's eye, the pictures on the actual book animate before your eyes, which is, I still do it all the time when I'm bored, even though I've seen it 1,000 times. I drew the thing and it's still exciting to me to see. But it's not just fun to watch. It's also, if you click on it, you get access to a stat block in which you can roll for anything. You get access to all information about subclasses, about magic items, about 1,000 things. And I've run things with Hexbound using the Arcane Eye app, and I cannot tell you the joy of not having to constantly flip pages back and forth to find a thing and then go back to the combat page. That's why it's there. So yes, it's not like a plastic mat that you can see like 3D images pop up, but it is so much more attainable for everyone as long as you have the book and the Arcane Eye app. You're set, and the Arcane Eye app is free, so why not get it?
That sounds really cool, and you kind of blend that cool factor with something that's actually helping your game be more efficient and easier to run, which I think is really cool. Are you planning to use this app for future projects as well?
Yeah,
as best you can.
I don't want to talk too much. I don't want to talk too much about it, but there is a reason why it's not called a Hexbound app.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, maybe you were talking a little bit previously. Before I let you go, you have your new hardcover book, Dragon Stew. The hardcover is just now shipping, coming out to folks. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yes, Dragon Stew was my first project. Getting some lore backstory about it. I developed Dragon Stew when I've always had a job. I've always had multiple jobs. It was at a point in my life where somehow by a twist of fate, I found myself without. Like I had 2 jobs one day and 0 jobs the next, like at the same time. So I had 2 years of unemployment, and I remember very vividly thinking, I can, I can waste 1 year, doing that thing that I've been thinking about for ages, and then start to get a real job after. I can do that. So I'm gonna do that. To me, it wasn't if it goes badly. It was it will go badly. It won't sell. But then I would have gotten that out of my system, and I can go back to looking for a job. So I worked on that Dragon's Due for like ages. I was teaching and also working in video games at the same time. So I would take my lunch break, work on Dragon's Due, like write it out, teach, write it out during class when I was not answering questions or anything, and I would go back home and draw it because I'm drawing and writing the thing. And I did the same thing for Hexbound. So I did everything and then put it on Kickstarter. Long story short, it blew up completely. Everyone's expectations were, especially mine, where I was completely flabbergasted. I remember putting a goal of 4K and thinking, I hope we get this within a week. And we got it between like in the first 45 minutes. So Dragon's Due was really exciting. It is a cooking supplemental that basically lets you, when you kill something in D&D, if it's not a humanoid, there's little to no interest in doing it other than maybe for a mission or a quest. Dragon's Due lets you cook monsters, and you get like fire resistances, of course, temporary and stuff like that. And you also get like adventures in Dragon's Due that are called cooking trials, which is the thing that people have enjoyed the most, and they've made their own. I've seen like so many people like sharing their own cooking trials, which makes me so happy. And I always explain it as it's Monster Hunter meets the Great British Bake Off. You put them together and that's that. Basically how it goes is you have a judge. That judge asks you are competing against another team of adventurers, of course, not players, but NPCs, adventurers. That judge tells you need to kill this monster, bring it back and cook it into this dish. And then we're going to see which team did the best dish, like cook the best dish. And that's like the baseline of that kind of adventure. So the Dragon's Due, you get that, and people have been the reaction for Dragon's Due. I mean, the reaction for Hexbound has like dwarfed Dragon's Due, and the reaction for Dragon's Due was already incredible. So I could not be happier.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sounds like you're on a roll and you're enjoying yourself over there. I know it's been a hard time for all of us this past year. So
yeah.
Hopefully like kind of a lot of having these books and these adventures to be able to, at least for me, like the only social time I've had lately is being able to get online and play games with my friends on Zoom.
Yeah, same thing.
So like having more things like this to do, I think is fantastic. You have anything else you want to tell us about Hexbound before I let you go? Anything that I didn't get a chance to ask you that you want to share with us? Any special things in the book that you want to drop for us?
Well, we just had a collab we just made a collaboration with the Runesmith. I believe I've talked about that here, so maybe not that. Yeah, I'll say that the way I will sell Hexbound is to say I wrote Hexbound and I drew Hexbound literally all by my lonesome. At the end of it, before the Kickstarter campaign, that's when I started to reach out to other artists to do a little bit more of additional work with environment and stuff like that. Hexbound, just as much as Dragon's Due, is a labor of love. If that sounds like something that is interesting to you, go check it out. We're doing great. People seem to love it. We are hitting 250K. It seems pretty soon. And and there's a ton of stuff. We get minis. We haven't talked about minis. We have pins. That's the most exciting thing. I was so happy that people were so nice and so supportive that I got pins for 2 tiers for free. You get pins, you get minis, you get cards. We just unlocked animated spell cards. There's a ton of stuff. So if it sounds interesting, I believe that we have a link below.
Yes, there's a link down in the doohickey down below. You can go check out Hexbound. And I know from going for years to PAX that people love their pens. People want those little pens, and they collect those pens, and they trade those pens. And so we'll show you those pens here, too. Those look really cool that y'all come up with there. And also, just I want to say how impressive it is that you've been able to do not only the designing and writing of this book, but also all the art. Like, there's not a lot of people out there who can bring those two skill sets together. And this book looks gorgeous. I mean, the folks here on the channel the past month have seen all the art that you've put together for this book, and it's really impressive. And those minis look really good, too. I know a lot of folks who watch our channel love the minis. And so as soon as we get our hands on those, we'll make a new video for those and maybe do another video about the book. So congratulations.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. That's very kind.
And where can they find you if they want to follow you on socials or find the Dragon's Due book as well?
Yeah, you can find me in at Anto D'Amico pretty much everywhere. I am very active on Twitter, too active on Twitter. Please go check it out if you want. I don't know, great thoughts like what if we called the bald eagle the bald-headed eagle, and more
I saw that.
bangers coming from me. Other than that, you can find Dragon Stew by typing Dragon Stew on Google. I am. If you're familiar with the platform, it's called google.com. You can find it on Google. You can find it by the publisher that published Dragon Stew, which is Metal Weave Games. In the Metal Weave Games store, Dragon Stew is right there for you for the taking. People, as I said, you can get the PDF now, like as soon as you buy it, and you can get the physical version. Of course, backers are getting it first, but if you go on my Twitter, you will see that I retweet not even all of them, but people have been sharing the pictures with the book, and it makes me so happy.
I saw that. That's incredible. And yeah, the Hexbound link is in the eye in the corner of your screen now, and the doohickey down below. We'll also have links to your socials down below too, and the link over to Dragon Stew. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
If you're interested in backing Hexbound on Kickstarter, which ensures that you get the best price and earlier access to it, using our link in the doohickey down below, let's Hit Point Press know that we sent you. It makes them want to continue their sponsorship of us, which keeps us making videos and keeps me from having to sell blood to pay for cat food. The Kickstarter does end on Thursday, March 11th, 2021, but if you're watching this video sometime down the line, I'm sure there will be some pre-order options available too. Again, many thanks to Mr. D'Amico for joining us today, and thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below, and I'll pass along any that I don't know how to answer myself. Don't forget to enter the giveaway by being a subscriber and leaving me that comment down below with your favorite Hexbound class, our subclass, and how you'd use it. And as always, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. For now, though, stay safe, have fun, love each other, and I'll see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.